Hey, welcome to the Carpio Corner. My name is Chris.
And I'm Gloria.
And this is
Andrew McDermott.
And
Steph McDermott.
And there are two special guests today. We're going to be asking them 5 different questions. And those questions are...
What is your love story? What have you found to be the most valuable aspect of your marriage? What has been the most challenging part of becoming parents? What do you love most about being a parent? And what advice would you give to a couple thinking about or soon to be having their first kid?
And if those questions sound interesting to you, make sure you stick around. All right, guys, so let's get started. First off, Andrew, you said that you wanted to say something that you've always wanted to say if you were ever to be on a podcast. What is that?
It's actually just pretty simple, but I love podcasts. I've listened to podcasts for 10 plus years, something like that.
Wow.
And I've
You're
never
lucky.
been on one. This is my first podcast ever. And I just always thought to myself, like, I didn't know what context I would be in terms of podcasting. You know, I didn't know if it would be like, you know, I'd done something amazing, something like that. Something like that. But like
You did. You got married to my sister.
That's true. Yeah, I did. I got married to Steph, and that's what we're here for. So, but yeah, just wanted to be able to say that I'm very excited to be on my first podcast, and I hope this isn't my last in my life. But like at the same time, this is really cool to be on a podcast.
Wait, that's
having listened to thousands of episodes of different podcasts, it's amazing to be on one. You know,
Wait, that's what you wanted to say?
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. I just wanted to be able to say, like, this is my first one.
Internalize
I wanted to be able to let you guys know and let the listeners know,
Yeah.
too. Like, this is my first one, and I'm excited to be here. And
That's
Steph is
awesome,
too.
dude. Well, we're stoked to have you on. And Steph, we're really excited for you to be on here, too. Yeah. Are you excited to be on here?
Yeah, I'm here. It's definitely weird because
Yeah.
it's just we're family, so it's
Yeah.
like a different kind of setting.
Yeah.
So, but
Totally.
It's just like we're at the dinner table
Yeah.
talking
We're at the
Talking
drink table because we all
Yeah.
have different drinks.
with a
Yes.
single M&M.
Yeah.
I'm saving it.
So let's hit that
Okay.
tradition real quick. What did you guys bring to the table?
So for our drinks, we both brought...
Steph was like, what do you mean?
She's like... Steph's like, oh, so we're starting the conversation now? Okay. Like,
what did I bring to the table?
metaphorically or yeah, so we brought Five Guys shakes. I kind of listening to your guys' podcast, I heard that this becoming like this traditional thing to bring drinks and like talk about them in the beginning and stuff. And I know Noah and Lindsay, your guests the last time,
This is getting really
trying
meta.
but like, so I was like, wow. Like, Noah and Lindsay brought, like, these specific drinks that they wanted to bring, and I was like, wow, what should we bring, And so I thought Five Guys shakes, and so we each have a Five Guys shake. I have the
Nice.
chocolate and banana shake, and Steph has...
Banana and Oreo cookie.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I don't know if you know this about Five Guys. Little shout out to Five Guys.
Yeah.
But all of their add-ons are free. So
What?
you can
For the
literally
shakes?
add...
Even in
For the
shakes?
shakes. Yep.
Yeah. So you pay like
What?
$5 for the shake, which is
Yeah.
$5.79, but,
it's
who's
almost like
counting?
$6. But that it's just vanilla based, and then you could just add like any toppings you want.
Whoa.
That's
so I
good
was
to
like,
know.
might as well add like multiple because
Yeah.
They have like
So.
bacon, like some crazy like add-ons, but just like their burgers, like you pay for the burger and then all their add-ons are free.
That's true.
But you also like you pay for the cheese or whatever, But yeah, that's their thing. So yeah, we decided to go there, and they're really good.
Cool. Well,
Nice.
Glow and I have the same drinks that we had last week because we recorded 2 episodes in one day. Why don't you guys start off? Tell us, what is your love story? How did it all begin? I was kind of there watching as a bystander, but I want to hear it from you guys. What's your love story? When did it start? All the way to the beginning. Part one.
Part one. Okay, all the way to the beginning, and we can like tag
back
team
and
this.
forth.
Yeah, tag team this. You hop in whenever you feel like you want to add something too. But I just want to say, for context, like for those who don't know, and just in case you don't know, Steph is Chris's sister. So I'm Chris and Gloria's brother-in-law, and so we actually have known each other since we were like maybe 8. We always say 8. It could be another age, but it's probably like 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. But since we were 8 years old, and we met through our parents going to the same small group, and they at that time weren't even married to each other, right? So they were just dating, Steve and Aggie, Chris and Steph's parents, and they were going to the same small group as my parents, and so we as kids would be babysat, or we'd kind of watch ourselves depending on the day, and we got to know each other there. I think that was when we first met.
Yeah. I remember that part and being always wanted to play your PlayStation.
Yeah.
There's a spy game that you had on that where you had to like fly this vehicle like through these different things. Like a super vivid memory of that.
Yeah, I don't remember the game, but I do remember the PlayStation. Yeah. Whenever it was at our house, I think that's what we did.
Yeah.
At other people's houses, there's other stuff to do too, but that was a lot.
So Steph, how did you feel like during that time where you like knew Andrew was like the super early age? You were guys like apparently 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 maybe, that you knew each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was just like a boy in the group. So, I mean, I tried to play with him, but he thought I was annoying, I think.
She was just a girl in the group, No.
He was a boy.
Yeah.
She was a girl.
Yeah. I got along with his sister. We played together during those times, so...
Yeah, we knew who each other were, but we didn't obviously hang out. Like at that age, a lot of boys and girls don't have friends who are boys and girls. I think they're but we knew each other were, and then kind of through the years, that was the relationship we had. We just kind of knew who each other were, and then we went to when we go, fast forward to high school age, we were in youth group together at Grace, and that's where we knew each other. We didn't go to the same high school or anything like that, but. We went on mission trips together, etc. And then I don't remember exactly when we started to become friends. We maybe junior and senior year of high school. And
we had different friend circles.
Yeah, different friend circles. But we were still we talked a little bit. And then I went away to college in Pennsylvania, and Steph was still home. I think she was going to CCM, right?
Yeah.
Our freshman year, and so I started to. We were still talking then, and then we started dating. I think around Christmas time, right? Right, that first time, that was a long time ago. It feels like that was 12 years ago.
You're the date guy.
Yeah, it was very, very back in the day. But anyway, we started dating our freshman year of college, and we dated for 6 months or so, and it was a rocky relationship. We were super immature in our ways of thinking. We were long distance. Just very self-centered, the two of us, and that obviously never works for any relationship.
Well, what in the midst of that?
Sure.
So because that's in my mind that's part one of your relationship.
That's part one. Okay.
Yeah, and so you were young. And,
we were young.
And how old are you guys again?
We were 18.
18, and you were long distance. So what do you think were some of the pitfalls in that? You say you were young, but what is that?
Yeah.
Is that what you attribute, or is there more to
right.
that part of your relationship? Because that was part one.
Yeah, that's part one. You can hop in. Do you have any thoughts right off the top of your head?
Well, yeah. Just
yeah.
We were just I don't know.
Maybe I think the most key word was we were selfish, and so
yes.
I was very much about what could Steph, give me in terms of just being my girlfriend, sort of, that was she was my first girlfriend actually, I had never kissed a girl. She was my first kiss, and that sort of thing was something that was new to me. So for me, it was just about having almost having a girlfriend, having her, be at my side essentially, and it was a very self-centered view, just about me, what this relationship meant to me, and it was very mature. There was whenever something didn't meet that expectation, I would get mad at her, or I'd be standoffish with her, etc. And then, in Steph's court, she kind of had her own version of a self-centered view of the relationship.
Yeah, it was super superficial.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think I was
superficial.
also trying to have Andrew meet all my needs,
right.
that obviously the Lord needed to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It's like we were trying to make the other person meet our needs, you know, and, for different reasons. Like, I didn't grow up thinking like that my significant other would like fill a void in my life, but more like be like an add-on in my life sort of thing. Like that was my immature view of it. Yeah. And then I think in another way, like Steph thought her significant other would like fill a void that she had in her life sort of thing. And so with those two incorrect and immature views of relationships, like we really were a recipe for not a good part one, and so after 6 months of that relationship, we broke up. I had come back for the summer, and it was like fairly early in the summer, like end of June, early July sort of thing, like where we broke up, and we didn't talk for about a year or so. We stopped talking altogether. And then after about a year, we started talking again, but just as friends. We were just, Steph went away to another college in Virginia. I was still going to school in Pennsylvania, although I was sort of trying to figure my life out, so I was coming back and forth from school. Yeah. And we both had our own life. We were doing our own thing, but we still kind of began to talk as friends again, sharing like personal things that were going on in our life in terms of our relationship with other people, or like how we were feeling at that season in our life, etc. Like, for example, Steph was down in Virginia and not doing well with school, but she was finding this community and stuff like that, and she would tell me about those things, about the people she was meeting, etc. I would do the same. And then kind of fast forward a couple more years of that, we eventually got to this place where Steph called me one day and said like, hey, I'm together with this guy, and this is like the relationship I have with him in Virginia, etc. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like she had kind of been in relationships before and stuff. And then about a month later, she called me and was like, hey, I'm engaged to that guy. And I was like, what? Like that's crazy. And like this Chris was involved in this too. Like you were a part of this too. Like she called you and your family and etc. and was like, hey, yeah, I'm engaged to this guy, and the whole family was like, like what? Who is this person that you knew for a very short amount of time? You want to hop in on that part at all? But
just lost in college. And was still, in a way, trying to find, like, my needs met in, guys, I guess. Yeah. And this guy said, we can start a new life together. We can move down to Florida, like, whatever. Start just over. And that sounded really good to me because at the time I was, like, failing college and just like feeling really depressed and just working like a dead-end job. So I just felt like I couldn't hear from God anymore, and this was like the best way out. So honestly, calling everybody and telling them about this news was just kind of like, I didn't really have feelings about it. It was just, I needed to do it. Yeah. So, but just hearing other people's, reactions to the call is still shocking to this day, because it's just like, how could I do that?
Yeah, it's actually crazy.
You were just at a very, low point, a very low place in your life too. And I'll just rewind just a little bit. A few weeks before that, maybe even just a couple weeks before she started dating this guy, she had called me and like basically had told me one night that she was how low she was, and how like things were not going well for her, that she would just get in her car and like drive for hours because she didn't know what else to do, and like that was, she was finding solace in the long drives and stuff like that. And I was in my car in my driveway when she called me and told me that, and as she was speaking about that, it was the Holy Spirit, but I didn't realize it at the time. But the Holy Spirit in my own like conscience was convicting me that I had contributed in some ways. Obviously, life choices and stuff that she had made were contributing to those things, but I contributed in some ways to that brokenness that she was experiencing. I had mistreated her over the years, like in various ways, and in our relationship, in part one, like I wasn't a good boyfriend, I wasn't like, as loving as I could have been, etc. And so that was something that weighed heavily on my heart. So I actually got off that phone call with her, say goodbye, and then went into my house, and I laid down on my bed in my bedroom, and all the way up until that moment, like I had been sort of living this like sort of double life in terms of my relationship with God. I had, I'd always grown up as a Christian and everything like that, but like I had begun to walk away from God and be very, very self-centered again, like just focus on myself. And I laid down on my bed that night and just said to God, like, God, I feel horrible right now. Like, I'm in this place where I realize I hurt somebody else, and that really woke me up. And I know I'm 1,000 miles away from you right now, but I'm going to turn around and like start my journey back to you. And in that moment, I had like this vision, for lack of a better word, in my mind's eye, of me like turning around and expecting like a wasteland like behind me and the 1,000 miles I had to walk. But when I turned around, I experienced it like I was in the gates of heaven already, like the turning was the repentance, was enough to do that. And because of that, when Steph called me and told me a month later or so, hey, I'm engaged to this person, like I was in a completely different place than I had been even a month prior to respond to that shocking news, of my best friend, I would have said at the time, my very close friend, Steph, like clearly down this broken path. I was in this broken place not too long ago, and God like pulled me out of that, and I was beginning this new journey with him, etc. Yeah. And so that prepared me to be a part of like what would come next, I guess the beginning of part two. Yeah. And so that starts with basically she had made those phone calls to us and said like, hey, this is my life now, etc. Through a series of a few events over the next couple of weeks, like people went down to see her, your parents went down to see her, and some friends, and she began to see, long story short, like she began to see like that people had love for her outside of, where she was seeking it in this man and in this relationship, and she could come home to a place where people loved her and God's love could be demonstrated properly, etc. And so she made the decision to leave that guy and to break off the engagement, which thank God, there she is today, sort of thing. Yeah. And she came home, and when she came home, her and I met up, and we went on another long drive, but this time it wouldn't be one alone, with just her driving. And over the course of the couple hours that we drove, I drove her like all over New Jersey. It was like a round trip New Jersey trip. And I basically told her like, hey, look, like God's doing this thing in my life. Like, and he can do this for you too. Like I was as broken as you are right now, but he like pulled me out of that situation. And it was an amazing experience because it wasn't me or her who had like done anything, but like God was like shining a light into my life to then shine a light into her life and et cetera. So that really was a really cool moment for us, a really cool drive for us. And that was in May. She came back home in May. Late May, and in September that year, we started 1825, which was a young adults ministry here at Grace, and we had been preparing all summer to do that together with a couple other people, and that ministry really brought her and I very close to one another. Like we were doing ministry side by side, and it was a very cool experience. So we we began to not only grow in our new relationship with God, but in our relationship with one another, closer and closer as friends. So,
yeah. I was just going to say that I have always loved Andrew. I think that's important to note because, like, even when we were dating the first time when we were 18, like, I felt in my heart like I'm going to marry him. And I would say that to my mom, like, to our mom, I guess.
Yeah.
And
to everyone's mom.
Yeah, to all
Your mother, my mother, the listener's mother.
All listeners.
And, like, so when we broke up the first time, it was, like, the hardest thing ever. And so, but then, like, the love for him was still there. I mean, obviously we were friends and there was, like, a mutual understanding, you know, this was not good for us anymore. But, like, my love for him still remained, even though I had this, like, I was lost, you know, I was like the
prodigal.
Prodigal son, but prodigal daughter in this case.
Sure, yeah.
And so I needed to go through that, and, you know, eventually we'll get to, in order for me to be at a healthier place for you, obviously getting married and stuff. But when I came home, like, finding out that Andrew, so, like, he found this information out about me, and then like, I found out when I got home that he was coming over and hanging out with you and, like, Chris and praying together, and just, like, that spoke volumes of love to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily see it in a romantic way when I heard that, but eventually I did.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, it's there's nothing more loving than someone praying for you. And so, yeah, like, when we were in 1825 and, you know, I was settling back home in New Jersey, like, the love just kind of came back, you know, and, like, it was kind of reignited, you know, in a different way, in a good way, you know, in a way that, like, I was seeing Christ in him rather than, like, seeing him for, like, meeting my needs kind of thing. And so, like, being in ministry together and being in that, you know, environment, even though we technically were not allowed to date.
At first. We got approval eventually.
We got approval eventually, yeah.
As ministry leaders, like, they had kind of this unspoken rule, like, that we weren't to date, like, together, but we actually approached them before we were dating and said, like, hey, we want to, would it be okay? And, like,
I remember that.
The leaders in charge, like, the pastors in charge, were like, yeah, totally, we want you to. That's great.
Yeah.
So
I think what's really cool that you guys have shared so far is like the kind of, like, theme that I'm seeing is how you both went from that place of, like, seeing each other as the means to fulfill your needs to then observing, like, one another either trying to fulfill their needs in someone else through a relationship or seeing how they've learned to fulfill their needs in the relationship with God. You know, like, Andrew, you saw her and, like, oh, look, this is what it looks like when a person who could potentially be my wife tries to fulfill her needs through a man, you know, and find satisfaction in a man and not in God, and look how it's destroying her. And you found, like, oh, look, I can't find my satisfaction in the world, and I need to find it in God. Yeah. And then when you both were able to recognize that, then that's when you guys were able to come together and then find each other serving, like, in ministry together and, like, building the kingdom together, which it's, like, totally different place, you know, than where you guys were before. So I think just as, like, a listener, that's a really awesome principle. And, you know, it's not like a lesson, but it almost kind of is, you know, it's like, make sure that before you are trying to enter into a relationship with someone that you know that God is the only one who can satisfy your needs.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, I thanks for calling that out, because that definitely is true. I mean, like, there are millions, not exaggerating, of details that we obviously can't like talk about all in this sitting, like sort of thing that happened during that season. But
I know you have all of them.
Yeah, I don't have all of them memorized. It's actually been funny to think about this thing, to even think like, wow, there was a time when I was 18. Okay.
Yeah. You're not that old.
I know, I'm not that old. I'm only 30 now. But it's just weird to think about that. I don't have every detail memorized, but there are so many. I just think about a lot of things. Like there are so many things that happen in every couple's relationship.
Yeah.
Like that are behind closed doors. Metaphorically, I guess you could say. Yeah. That the world would never know. Like in your guys' relationship, there's so much relationship that happens that is super, like only the night knows, only the day knows. Like only like it's very it's strange to think about that. Like people who are in relationship are walking around with conversations that no one else but God has ever heard. It's like crazy. Like we had hundreds of those, and we have had thousands now, of those, and just thinking back, it's just like there's so many things I want to say, that can't be covered obviously in a podcast, but I think the lessons that you just called out are huge, and they really are the overarching ones. Like basically God is the satisfier of all real desire, and you can't find satisfaction elsewhere.
All right, so you guys came together. You were in ministry. You got approval to date, right? That kind of sounds like cultish almost.
But we arranged your marriage. Like no. It was just it was more like
a formality.
Yeah, it was a formality.
Yeah. You were in a leadership position. They wanted to make sure there wasn't conflict of interest.
Yeah. Totally, yeah. And it was actually we actually viewed it as like a at that time. I think something that I was thinking about a lot was like respecting authority in the church, and like that actually was a great opportunity to like exercise that respect that I thought was needed and stuff. So it was good. But yeah, I guess this is sort of part 3 in a relationship. We started dating, and it was and
he stole your heart.
Yeah, so this is interesting. Like, again, one of the things that it details, like just quickly in sort of tangent in this is like, I liked Steph, and I definitely had like a relationship, like had a desire for that. But prior to even that conversation, can we date and all this stuff, I had her sort of at arm's length, and my relationship with her was, I had kind of kept her. She had these strong feelings for me, and she was just talking about, she had always sort of had this love that was rekindled. I did not have that like same experience, and it took me. I never said I love you to her in our first relationship or to anyone else in my life, and anything, besides my family, of course. But I had to make sort of like this. How should I, like Noah and Lindsay in your last conversation, they talked about how they're like super anti the one.
Yeah.
And like I almost, when I listened to that, I was in the car, I almost said out loud, I was like, amen. Yeah. Like dude, like these are my
the guy at the stoplight next to you is like, amen.
Yeah. He's like, I really needed that amen. But they're really cool people, Noah and Lindsay, and haven't met them a couple times, but listen to the podcast, like really cool. It's a lot of things I agree with what they were saying, and that is something in particular, like I really agree with that, And so I had to make like almost like a choice, love is a choice, it's not a feeling, ultimately, and like there was never a time that was more real than that period of time, and so it was almost like I'm making a choice to love Steph, and that sounds weird and like unromantic. It's not like the movies or anything like that, but like I did love her, but I needed to almost like make a choice that this is the person I'm going to love, if that makes sense. And so there was that whole thing, like I basically said that to Steph. I said, look, like I'm going to say this to you, and this is the first time I'm ever saying it, and she knew that and everything, and I told her I loved her, when we first started dating. That was like how we started dating, essentially. We went to Cracker Barrel one Sunday after church. I took her to Horseshoe Lake, and at the gazebo at Horseshoe Lake. Which, see, I am romantic. So, you're like, actually, this sounds good.
Actually, I'm amazing.
Cracker Barrel and gazebos, man. You gotta. But
The
like,
sun was setting.
yeah, it actually was midday, but
Okay,
it's fine.
It was blistering hot.
Yeah. But I told her I loved her, there. And like, I meant that so deep. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice. And she knew that. And that was very important for us at the time, that it was like this whole thing we had walked through together in order to get to that moment. And so we started dating. She said, I love you back, which is very good.
And he had said, I've talked to your parents. I talked to our ministry leader at the time from 1825. Like, I got the okay from like all these people, like even like a random pastor, that he didn't have to get approval from, like for this. I felt cared for, and like, he had gone above and beyond, to, come after my heart. And he said, like, you're the first, I forget exactly, but you're the first girl I love. You're the first girl I'm saying I love you to. And you're the last girl I want to say I love you to. Or something
the last
like that.
woman. That's
the
it.
woman.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember. But I was
You're
like,
the first
oh
girl
my
I love and the
gosh.
last woman I love. Yeah. No, it was something like that. And I
It
definitely,
was romantic.
Yeah. See, thanks.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's
Andrew's
all I
like
need.
trying to convince everyone. It's like, no,
Please,
see?
please believe me, I was romantic. No, I mean, I'm not. I don't know. Like, I'm not like a hyper romantic person. But anyway, just forget the romance thing. Like, just move on with the romance. All right. So anyway, we started dating, and it was like late April.
Yeah, this was just dating. This wasn't even engaged yet.
Yeah.
But it did feel like that day when he said, "You're the last woman I want to love." Like, it did kind of feel like
At the gazebo.
we're just dating, right?
Where's the ring?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We're just dating, right? We're not engaged right now. But yeah.
So we started dating. It was like we just knew, like most Christian relationships. I think like when people are intentionally Christian, like their intention is for marriage, and so they look forward to it as marriage, that sort of thing. So that doesn't always work out, obviously, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what you talked about last week's episode.
Well, not really, but we have talked about that before.
Oh, but I mean,
that part.
didn't you
The not working out part?
No, the breaking up part.
Yeah. That's not working out.
Okay, not
Yeah.
working out. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes.
So anyway, so we started dating, and we dated for a year, and after a year, I was like, I'm not gonna ask Steph to marry me for a while. Like, it's gonna be, I want to make sure of everything and need more time, everything like that. And I went to a friend's wedding in Michigan, and I was talking with, he was getting married, and I was talking with his dad. And I told him that. I was like, yeah. He was like, you're dating now, that's really cool. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, are you gonna get married? And I was like, yeah, I think so, but I'm not gonna ask for a while. I think there's gonna be more time. And he's like, that's so dumb. Like, if you're gonna get married, then like, make the move you're supposed to. And I was like, huh? And so and then we went and got married, and I mean, no, they got married, and I was just thinking about that. No.
Then me, the dad got married.
That's not what my mind.
Oh, well, that's what he said. Then we went and got married.
It did sound like that, yeah. No, his son went and got married, and I was just thinking while we were at that wedding, I was like, it's a very interesting like way of thinking about it. And I went back home, and I talked with my mentor about that concept, and he basically said the same thing. And he asked me a series of questions like a mentor should, and just very like through those questions, like led me down a path of like coming to the answers on my own. He's an amazing guy, amazing mentor. Shout out to Barry. I just was like, okay, like that really does make sense. Like I really came to the conclusion that I'm not going to wait as long as I thought I was going to. So I started making plans for the engagement, and we were coming up on about a year. we actually had celebrated our year, and it was like a week or so later that I was going to propose. And so set up this whole thing, went to Swartzwood Lake up in Newton, and that's the whole story. We don't have to get fully into that, right?
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to.
No, that's okay. It's a great story.
It's a long story.
Yeah, It's a long story and a great
long story. The way that Andrew tells it, or it's a long story?
Well,
probably.
I mean, every story that Andrew tells is long.
I kind of felt like I should have given a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode.
I know, I'm sorry.
Andrew is a highly detailed individual, so we're gonna get like so much, which is totally fine. I mean, this is your love story. We want to hear it.
Yeah, I shouldn't. I do like telling stories, but my mom used to like when I was a little boy. My mom used to like call it glazing over. Like her eyes would glaze over. I was like telling her like, Mom, and then we went outside and the Revolutionary War guys were like running over. It's like, and her eyes would like just glaze over, and she would just kind of stare at me and just kind of like look into the distance. But it was hard. My mom was such a great mom because she learned the art of like being able to listen without listening. Sort of thing. It was amazing, you know.
That's amazing. So Gloria does that to me sometimes too.
Does Gloria do it while she's like reading a book, like sometimes too?
No,
like,
just like while I'm talking to her.
Because like when I'm talking,
I won't deny it.
Yeah.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. Because my mom would also read while she was listening to me, and she would just tell me, "Yeah, I'm listening." Like she would like read while she was doing it. My mom's a huge reader. Like honestly, like you, Gloria, like she's very similar. I see some similarity
Gloria's
in terms
like,
of.
Am I a big
I don't
reader?
really read that much.
You do. You always have your book with you, and like
that doesn't mean she's
carry it
reading it.
around.
Okay.
She's like, should I bring this book in the car? I'm not gonna read it. Nah, I'll bring it. Yeah. And then she doesn't read it.
Okay, well maybe that's what my mom did.
Anyways, you could be telling the engagement story right now.
Yeah, shoot, I
It's
messed
over.
up.
It's
Okay,
over.
anyway, great story, great engagement story. If you ever want to ask, like, find Steph and I and ask. And so we got engaged, and Chris actually took the pictures. It was awesome. He was hiding, and the whole family was there. Super exciting day. So she said yes. It's awesome. And we spent another year like planning the wedding, and we got married the following May. So it was like 1 year of dating, 1 year of engagement, and then we got married. So we got married 2018, May 19th, same day as Harry and Meghan. Yeah, Harry and Meghan. So
Markle?
The royal. Yeah.
Yeah.
The royal.
Yeah, they're royal
People that
too.
were like kicked out. Or
Yeah.
the Queen was at their wedding, but the King of Kings was at our wedding. I've had many
so
years
cringe.
to plan that one.
This is the one thing I've always wanted to say on a podcast.
Yeah, that's the second thing I was wanting
So,
to say.
Steph, how did that time frame feel to you? Was that like a good? You were like, yeah, that's exactly how I wanted it to go, or were you like, man, I wish we would have gotten married sooner or later?
Well, I think that our engagement was rough, right? Like we were going through like the marital counseling and everything. So like stuff was coming up like while we were in that, and so we had to like, I don't know, face those things, just like baggage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think we needed that time, honestly. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a good time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that, like, so when Steph came home originally, you know, there's this huge, like, coming back to God and God working in our life and everything like that. And I wish it could have been, like, everything was uphill. Like, everything was great from there on. Like, it was this, upward trajectory. But obviously, just like regular life, like, our relationship and even our relationship with God and everything was like a roller coaster a lot of the time, you know, and ups and downs. And so, you know, we were great when we were dating and everything like that, but we were by no stretch like perfect in any way, obviously.
Yeah.
And so we still had a lot of the same insecurities and stresses and stuff that like bothered us from even when we were dating back in like part one, you know, like that same thing. But we had obviously grown some from there, and God was much more at the center of our life then. Like Steph said, the engagement definitely called out like a lot of things, and the premarital counseling definitely did.
That's awesome.
But you know, we certainly, you know, going into marriage, we we thought like, oh, you know, like it's great that we're working all this stuff out, but when we get married, like then it'll be all good, like then it'll be smooth, you know, and like that was
not the case.
Not the case, you know, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So do you want to unpack that more, or do you want to move on to the second question?
What's the second question?
The second question has to do with marriage.
What's the most
valuable aspect of your marriage?
Yeah, I think it kind of plays into it,
Okay, yeah.
so we can go kind of into the question. But yeah, like we did not have a great first year of marriage, which is hard for us to confess a lot, at least for me still, like it's being very vulnerable because you hear about everyone else's story and like, I don't know, a lot of the time it is like, you know, honeymoon, you know, year, and it's amazing. But ours was really hard, and, you know, because like you know, like I had still not dealt with some baggage selfishly, and was still in some ways like looking for Andrew to meet some of those needs, you know, which is even like just confessing that is hard to confess because it's like, really? After all those years? But so we did actually go back to our counselor, who was our premarital counselor. It took us a while to get to that point, but when we did, it did help. You know, there was a lot of things that he shared with us that was really helpful. And as hard as it was, like at the end of the year, we were like, okay, what do we want to do? Like going to year 2, like what would we like to, what would we like our goal to be? Like in order to grow as like a couple, as man and wife. And we said, we want to be friends. Like, let's be friends this year. And that was the most valuable, thing in our marriage so far, because ever since then we've only grown, you know, closer as friends. And that was because when you're friends with someone, you know, you put them first, you know, and you listen, you know, like so many, you communicate, you know, there's so many things that, you know, we needed, that we wouldn't have had if we didn't decide, you know, like we need to be friends. Yeah. You know, instead of just husband and wife, you know, like I think you can definitely be married and just be husband and wife and not be friends. Yeah. Because that's when you start feeling like roommates or whatever. And
like partnership.
Yeah. And like, it's easier to pinpoint things like, oh, you're not doing this, so that's why I'm upset, you know, whatever. But like, that's not a friend, you know, like
with friends, we are like more compassionate towards them for some reason, and you know, like just generally kinder and more patient.
Right.
But then it's the dynamic, I feel like, in some ways of your spouse becoming your family, and then you starting to treat your spouse in the way that you treated your family. You know what I mean? And it's like, in some ways that could be like a negative kind of response depending on how you were treating your family, like that's beforehand, you know? And so it pushes you to kind of grow and then realize like, oh dang, like this person that I'm treating this way, like they share a bed with me, and like I have to wake up and see them every day, and there's consequences to the way that I'm choosing to say things, or the things I'm choosing not to say, you know, and like affirming them and stuff like that, or not affirming, you know, like it's just really, it's interesting. And I think it's really cool that being friends part, you know, because then you're having a good time too.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, when we were friends, like, but we weren't really trying to be the best of friends to one another. We weren't like,
we weren't being friendly.
Yeah, we weren't outdoing one another in love, like the scripture says. That was a big verse that we went back to a lot, and humbling one another, you know, humbling ourselves towards one another. So
you'd say the most valuable part of what you found to be the most valuable thing in your marriage is friendship.
Yeah, friendship, and then everything that led to, like, it ultimately led to trust. You know, like I think the reason that we didn't have a very positive first year, and it wasn't all bad, of course. Like, you know, there was good things, but like we just, it was very difficult. It was like a struggle, I guess. And the reason was because we were not trusting one another, like we should have, and so by choosing to see, give each other the benefit of the doubt, to becoming vulnerable with one another, being honest with one another, those things led to kindness and patience with one another, that sort of thing. And for me, like, I had shut down a large part of myself in order to kind of not trip up, I guess you'd say, like, or not like tread on the parts of Steph that she was sensitive about or anything like that. And that was where I began. I was just like, I guess I can't trust Steph with my feelings. I just have to bury all those things, because if I reveal my feelings, it might make her insecure and it might make all these things go, crazy. And so, like, we both lived in this place where we weren't being 100% like vulnerable with one another. And then by opening up that door of friendship, that began that part, and it took Steph like not long at all, like, to like open her heart up again and just begin to work on herself and to, pour out love. But it took me a little longer to like let my walls down when I began to see like the value of trusting and not living in my head anymore, because that's where I spent my whole life, was living in my head. I still do that. You're just opening up to her and like trusting her with my heart, like, here it is, sort of thing. Like, it became this amazing relationship, the best, like, that there's ever been, sort of thing, like, in terms of, that's what marriage is. It's the best relationship on earth. And because you're one flesh, she became like a part of me, I became a part of her, and we became a new being, I guess you could say. So,
I have a question in that. And Andrew said that he had like a hard time expressing his emotions to you because it felt like maybe you would like trip up some insecurities or something like that. And the change in that, where now you were allowing for him to be able to express, or he felt permission, whether you were allowing it or not before, I don't know. But like, what was the dynamic change from your perspective that allowed for him to begin to build that trust with you and saying, oh, I can express myself without having to fear tripping up Stephanie's insecurities or something like that, or undealt like issues?
Yeah. I think I realized how like freaked out like I could become with things that he would share vulnerably with me, like whether it was like a fear or a plan, I would just spiral. Like my anxiety would just spiral. So I would go from like 0 to 100, and then I would just start like already responding to the thoughts. When he just needed someone to listen. So like I addressed that, like, I'm not perfect today, I still struggle with that, but just recognizing that was a huge lesson for me, and then bringing that to the Lord. So like when I'm sitting before Andrew and he's bringing me these things, like now recognizing like I have a choice, am I going to spiral, or am I going to, exercise like bringing things to the Lord, like even as he's speaking them, and I think that helped a lot. And just, like being slow to speak. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think that's probably what, whether it's the guy or the girl, I think that kind of was a struggle can parallel into many different people's relationships, and building that trust, I think, is super awesome too. Just having that relationship with someone where you can be like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and not feel like insecure about sharing your feelings, because then you bottle up, and then that becomes like a down the road, like, where is this coming from? Like, what do you mean, where is this coming from? This is, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Well, and that's communication. I mean, like, if I'm the only one communicating, that's not a relationship, let alone a friendship, so it was a really important lesson for us to learn, that's for sure.
And because of all of that, like, just the things that I love most about Steph are so much more visible now, because like I have been I've been more vulnerable, you know, with her. Or like our counselor used to say, radical honesty is like what you should strive for. You know, radical honesty, like honesty that's like a little crazy that you're being that honest, you know, but because you're one flesh, that's where you can be radically honest, you know. I can't be radically honest on a podcast. Like I want to be. I want to like just lay it off, but like it just isn't the appropriate place or something like that. But like with Steph, I could be. And when I did that with her, and she did just take it and listen, Steph has like this incredible gift of wisdom. Like true wisdom, not just like, oh, that's really wise, like, you know, but like actual true wisdom.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love? Yeah, like that's like like, what does that have to do with anything?
Like comparing the
no, I get it. That's she's not a live, laugh, love wisdom. She's got like serious, like deep well wisdom. And there was a couple of times in particular that really began to change my vision, where I would come to her with a very serious problem. She would give me her wisdom after listening, and I would be like, okay, I'll try that. And then when I did it, it was like, whoa, it worked. Yeah, that was amazing. Okay, let me try again. And then like, you know, every time I went back to her, it was like, this wisdom is real. She's like a gift to me. You know, and I've always loved Stephanie's name. Her name means crown. That's what Stephen or Stephanie mean. And she really became like this crown on my on like the head of my life sort of thing, like this shining thing that was something that was very valuable to me all of a sudden, that I tapped into this. I knew she was a wise person, but I tapped into this wisdom where it became something we could infuse into our life because her gift was being allowed to be shared with me and all this stuff. So it's an amazing thing. Like trust opens up a lot of walls. And you know, she actually is a really good listener when she does listen, you know. So well, she does now. You know?
The way that one was phrased.
When she does listen.
When she does listen,
which is rare.
No, it's it's very common.
No, we know you're joking around. Well, in order to give the rest of these questions a right amount of time, you know, that they deserve, I'm just going to push us through into these next questions because you guys are specifically kind of like in a cool part of your life. You have a child, and now you're going to be having another child, which is super exciting, right?
Yes.
And you know, we all love Wes already, so it's just like, you know, who's this next kid gonna be?
One?
You know, and with that, you know, we haven't had a couple on that has had a kid yet, so we want to ask you guys a question in particular that has to do with that for people who are maybe listening that maybe want to have kids, or who are maybe one day, or who are going to be having like their first kid right now. So that question is, what has been the most challenging part of becoming a parent? What has been the most challenging part of becoming a parent?
We did talk about this last night, but I'm totally blanking on what we said.
Yeah, I think one of what you had talked about last night was that in like...
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
It was like the fact that, you know, we aren't just us anymore. That sounds horrible. We're very blessed to have Wes and everything.
One day Wes is going to hear that. And
No.
What? It can be therapy for...
He'll understand when he's older.
Totally.
That's totally different than where I was going with that.
Well, you go with where you were going to...
Well, just that, I mean... okay, so 2 answers.
Yeah.
I'll make them short.
Okay.
I think just... Oh, that's the answer for number 5, I think. Like,
that's okay.
Advice for going into parenting.
Yeah. Well, whichever one you want to go with.
Okay, so I'm shifting my answer for this one.
Yeah.
Which was...
what's the most challenging part of becoming a parent?
Is just like when you decide to do something like with your child and like sticking with that. For example, we decided pretty early on that we were gonna still go out like at night and like just transfer Wes from like where we were to the car and then back into his crib. And like when I have shared that with other people, it's kind of like, oh, he doesn't have like a routine, you know, like you don't read him a book, give him a bath, and then put him to bed, you know, at like a regular time. And it's intimidating, you know, when someone has like a really strong opinion that's like opposing to yours, like different than yours. And with that, like it's in my own flesh and my personality, it's easy for me to like shrink back in my decision and just kind of be like, oh, well, you know better. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
And just kind of forget like what we made we made this decision because this was the best decision for our family because our son, Wes, is so easygoing. Like he's not the type of baby where, you know, we're out, we transfer him and he's up all night, you know, like it couldn't care less. Like he couldn't care less. Like he just sleeps away wherever he is. He's not high maintenance in any way, you know, he's very easygoing. So I think the hardest part is just like sticking to your guns, like sticking to the decision that you made with your spouse as like parents and standing by that. Yeah. Because there's so many opinions, you know?
Yeah.
How would you like discern the difference between someone's opinion and then being able to receive like wisdom?
Yeah, that's true. So we have received wisdom. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me just think about that. Because we are not opposed to receiving wisdom. Yeah. Like obviously there are moms that I've talked to that are, you know, older and wiser and have, you know, much better experience with babies and stuff like that. But, and I mean, we're open to it, but I think like, I don't know, it's hard to,
I think the word,
how would you say?
Yeah, I think the word that helps like define what the line is it a comparison or is it just a suggestion, I guess you could say. That's a bad word for that. But comparison.
It's like, this is what I did with my kids, so you should do it too.
Right.
Versus like, this is what we've found to be an extremely helpful portion of like doing it with each of our kids is proven to be.
Right.
You know.
And then like almost like the question is stated like, and isn't that interesting, you know, that our kids did that? Like maybe it'll be interesting for yours too. Like that could be like a good way of like saying it, you know, sort of thing. But like the comparison, I would say to any like, you know, new parent, but in particular to new moms, like the comparison game is death. You know, like it really is. Like it's moms should they have so much on them already, you know, especially as new moms, you know, and depending on your situation, like maybe your mom's not in your life to help you even, you know, walk through that situation or whatever, but like you're just trying to figure it out, and to like go on Instagram and to go on like, you know, to be a part of like other groups and stuff like that, and to go to a park and like hear all this sort of shaming and comparison and like you ought to, you should, you know, it is so destructive if you're hearing it through that lens, and like if people are saying it to you through that lens. And so like if it's ever coming across as like a, you know, like my kid is better than yours sort of a situation or anything like that, that's where it's no longer wisdom, it's just pride, because that's where it's rooted. Is like, and
I think that's it right there.
It's rooted in this pride thing, because the ultimate goal of every parent, even if they didn't know it before their child was born, is to like make their child the best they possibly could be. You know, like to not necessarily even in a negative way, but like just for the child itself, like they want to see them grow and thrive and be amazing. And so all parents kind of throw their best at that endeavor, and then once you take your eyes off of that and start looking around, and you can take one of two courses. You can say like, well, it is, my way is the best, like, and then I'm gonna like insert that into other people's life. Or you can take the other route, which is, oh shoot, I'm horrible at this, like everyone else is amazing at this, I must be like a terrible person. And both of those are really bad, you know. And so comparison really does kill so many things for dads too, but I really think for moms especially. Like, and so sticking to your guns is like huge, because only you, not even the grandparents, only you, if you're a loving parent, know your child's like way.
Yeah.
And so much of parenting in our short, 21 months of experience of it is just doing what you think is best for your child, and realizing that like when you mess up, it's really going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like
there's grace.
Yeah, there's grace. It's just a baby. As long as it's still alive, you're good. That's you're doing well. Like, and so, like, sticking to your guns. What Steph means, I think, is really just you make a plan. You really should make a plan, and then be as flexible around your child as you can be, but don't be flexible around other people's plan for you. You build it around the child's need and your plan, not what other people say. But again, wisdom is everywhere. I mean, even before we got married, we watched videos on the birth, which you definitely should do that, because there's only really
before you got married.
I'm sorry. Before we, that would have been weird. Before we
during part 2, we were watching.
No, I'm sorry. Before Wes was born, I'm sorry. When Steph was pregnant.
Yeah.
We were watching videos on like how the birthing process would be and stuff like that. You should definitely do that. Yeah. That's definitely where you should be taking a lot of advice. Not a lot of comparison in that one. It's like this baby's born. That's all that is. Like there's a couple different ways to do it, of course, but definitely like that's one place where you're just taking in wisdom.
Awesome. So what would you say then for this next question as a segue, right? Which is, what do you love most about...
Stealing my questions.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't finish it.
You didn't get it out of the way.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. What do you love most about being a parent?
Say it again.
What do you love most about being a parent?
Wow. Now that you ask it that way.
Yeah.
They're a 2-time one. I noticed I asked the question 2 times, and the second time they are like ready.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that talking about our love story and seeing God's faithfulness in that, but then also like now having Wes, seeing his faithfulness in his little human body, and just in the ways that he's grown, is so rewarding. And just like being able to like pray for him and knowing that one day, hopefully he will also follow God and, lead his generation for Christ, But I don't know. There's so many things.
Yeah.
Like, there's not one thing that comes to me.
Yeah. And maybe that's just like part of it, It's like when you're a parent, not that I know, but like there's so much that you enjoy, and I feel like what you're saying is how can you put one above the other?
Yeah. It's like also like God's love for us, it gives you that perspective, right? Like we are his children.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he feels the same way about us. There's just so many things that he loves because we're his creation. It's very similar, but I'm not perfect, obviously, but God is. And so how much more perfect is his love?
It's like that verse where it says like, like, what is it? Would a father keep, what is it?
Would he give him, if his child asked for bread, would he give him a stone?
Yeah,
if he asked for a fish, would he give him a serpent?
Yeah, how much more? Yeah, will your father give you? Basically, yeah. Thanks, Andrew. Save me.
Yeah. No, it really is like an amazing thing. Like I just one thing for me, like when Wes was born, it's just grown over the time that he's been alive and everything, is that everyone always tells you that you're going to like love your child like when you see them and all this stuff, and some people experience that differently and stuff like that, but like when it is this insane feeling of like they really can do no wrong in your eyes at first, like it's so strange. Like I'm not I like children. I love kids. Like I think they're awesome and everything like that. But like sometimes my other friends' children were annoying, or like they stank or something like that, or like babies have really like, you know, weird smells to them, and like, you know, whatever. Like not just poop, but like, you know, just whatever. You know, if some throw up and it's still on their breath or something, you know, and so it can be this is real.
Another thing about
parenting.
Andrew is he's super sensory sensitive.
But like anyway, so, you know, I would be like, oh, your baby's so nice, and like handing back the baby. But like with Wes, like first, it wasn't a decision, you know, it wasn't a choice. Nothing like bothered me. Like, he's never annoyed me, not even once, like since he's been born. You know, I know the day will come when he annoys me, and like older parents right now are like, when they're a little more, when they have more volition, when there's like more like active like sin in their life and stuff like that, I know that there will be times of disappointment and stuff like that, but I haven't experienced that yet. But it's been an amazing experience of like nothing. His smell, like his poop, his diapers, his annoyance, like, you know, his like craziness, you know, all those things. It's like this insane love covers all like feeling that it's completely instinctual. It's not a choice at all. It's not like when you choose to marry someone. It literally feels like it's in your blood, you know. And when he was born, that literally overcame me. Like, as I held him, like he was, you know, 3 seconds old. It was like, if you like looked at my DNA, it was probably like changing, like Spider-Man sort of thing. Like he was like literally, like that's what it felt like. Yeah. It's so like spiritual, but physically spiritual. So and every day I kind of experience like little pieces of that still. So, you know, I can kind of understand why people, no matter what their child does, they love them, sort of thing. You know? But that's awesome. Yeah.
All right, Glo, I stole your question before, so I'm going to let you jump in on this last one.
Okay, our last question of the night. What advice would you give to a couple thinking about or soon to be having their first child?
Okay, so this is the question I'm ready to answer.
You always answer this on 3.
Didn't have to say this one twice.
I know. Okay, so if you are thinking about having a baby, I just want to say, and you're married, obviously, hopefully. Just like, one of the things I was really shocked about when we had Wes was just how much I grieved my time with Andrew. And like, I just wasn't expecting that part. I didn't know that was going to happen. Nobody told me that was going to happen. But it did. But just like, make sure that you have that friendship foundation like really, really laid out, because something that our premarital counselor said to us was that, like, you know, at the end of, you know, your journey of raising kids, and like, you know, even when they're, you know, teenagers or college or whatever, like they're still going to be around, but like when they're grown and they have their own kids and their own lives and everything, like you come back together. Like, you want to have had like a firm friendship, you know, foundation and like love, you know, and obviously that doesn't like disappear when you are raising children. Like, you know, it's just going to be different. Yeah. But like, I just think it is so important to really not look to the left or to the right and pay attention to like, or feel like pressure. Like, don't fall into the pressure, the social pressure, the family pressure to have kids and to rush into kids, because there is such an opportunity as like a newly married couple to do amazing things for the kingdom of God that you can't really, like, you're more tied down with children. Yeah. And you can do different things. It's not like you're tied down. Like, it's just different, you know, like. But while you have the chance, you know, really go on the adventures, really travel, like go on a mission trip together, you know, like, I don't know, do something like that. And serve your family, you know, and, you know, go on a million dates, like go on nice restaurants, like go shopping together. Because even as parents, like that's the one thing, like I can't go grocery shopping anymore without like having a child saying for some more blueberries that he sees like on the stand, you know. It's just like little things like that just, you know, you don't have when you don't have kids, you know, and it's such a gift. So don't rush out of the gift, you know, like really settle in and just love each other and embrace each other and recognize like, wow, there's so many wonderful things here, like before, you know, trying to rush into the next season, because, you know, it's just different. Like, even though it looks really good, and it is really good, but like it might just not be time yet. So just really think about it and pray about it and seek wisdom about it too, you know, like before you jump in. But that's my biggest advice. And I love being a mom. Okay,
I know.
I absolutely love being a mom.
And I don't think anything that you said makes it sound like you don't love being a mom. You know, I think if it just is encouraging people, like, also enjoy what you have now.
And if you're pregnant now and like having the baby soon and feel like you hadn't done that before, like go on a baby moon. People do that. They do, just before you have a baby, like go and do something nice, you know. It's a way to really value your relationship, because I think you guys even talked about, Chris and Gloria, you guys talked about that in your love story one, where you what's the thing you learned most is like that valuing the in between, you guys call it, you know. And that's exactly like what Steph means, and what we talked about last night, being something that's so valuable that you feel like you're missing sometimes when you're a parent.
Yeah, totally.
And I do feel like we had that. So like I grieved so much because we did have that, because we did take a million road trips.
I remember that.
Like
DC all the time.
Like all the time.
We used to love Washington DC. Like we would go there like, you know, 5 or 6 times a year, and like
it was the best.
I was always like, man, they're traveling again.
We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think people, you know, just through hearing your story will know that too, because, you know, they heard part 1, 2, and 3, you know, and in that you guys learned one of the most valuable things that you've come to appreciate in your marriage is your friendship, you know. So you could, you know, I think people can look at you guys and say, oh, they really, 1, they love each other, and 2, they actually like each other, you know. That's Shags' thing. He's always like, make sure you like each other, not just love each other.
It's huge.
That's awesome. Well, I think we're in the deep end of the pool, and we're pretty far in. I think we're almost in the ocean right now.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Like longest podcast ever,
so
kind of thing.
So far,
yes.
It's because of Andrew.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's all right. Hey, you know, we're
totally
here for it. If people are here and they're at this point of the deep end,
they're in the real deep end.
Let us know. Let us know that you made it this far, and then Andrew will know that, you know, you listened all the way through.
You care about me.
Okay. Oh my God. Put your floaties on. Andrew, did you want to talk about what we were kind of talking about beforehand, before this podcast? Remember you brought up that one, it was a gripe. It was a gripe. Yeah. So sometimes, and I'll preface this, we've only done a gripe like one other time.
I've only heard a gripe once.
There's only been a gripe once.
And it was about the Trader Joe's thing.
Yeah. And I think this gripe that you're bringing up is like relevant. You know?
Just remind me really fast.
It was about the podcast
that you were listening to.
Talking over each other.
You just gave away the gripe.
Thank you. No, that's good, Gloria. I couldn't remember. No, that's good. So we talked about because we're so far in the deep end, like that was left behind a long time ago. That was a Shallows. I love that song. Lady Gaga.
Okay,
Shallows.
anyway.
No, but
Andrew's like, let me tell you about all the reasons why.
So
wait, no. Okay, let me tell you our family gripe. Okay, so welcome to the family. You're now entered the family pool. All right, Andrew. We all have a gripe with Andrew. It's because he's so slow with things. This is our family gripe. Okay, it sounds mean.
Gloria's gently like. See, Gloria and I are in a good position because we both married into the family, so like she's on my side. She's on my side.
Always
Like,
poked at.
yeah, no, whatever happens, Gloria and I, we got each other's backs.
He's like, it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. Like maybe, it's a water bottle. I have a water bottle in my hands right now, and I'm taking the top off, and I'm taking it off, and you're talking to Andrew, and he's just like, yeah, and he's still
like that.
taking off the top.
No, but it literally is like that, honey. It literally is.
And then he's like,
We're
oh,
gonna
wait,
get to his gripe.
wait, no, that was the gripe.
That was
Chris's
your gripe, not his gripe.
Yeah, I mean, the classic example of the slow thing, like, is your mom has a good word for it. She says that I'm patient. That's
Yes.
but because your
That's
mom.
like that nice way of
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
it.
but that's.
But he is patient.
He is patient, yeah.
He
It
is patient
translates.
in a way towards Wes that I will never be. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And that's a gift.
Yeah.
Like he lets Wes like wander and I'm just like, okay, we have to go. And he's just so patient with him, like walking and wandering. And it's just like, I could never do that.
I think Wes is going to
we need to go.
a little bit of my, as your mom puts it, patience kind of thing, yeah. But, yeah, so I don't mean to be slow. I really don't mean to be. I don't mean to hurt anybody.
I know, but you're not hurting anybody. It's just it's a family thing. That's
yeah.
what I said. Is we were in the family pool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're in
we
the pool.
roast each other.
Yeah.
So, my
Your
gripe.
gripe, yeah.
Gripe. So,
I just did it, by the way.
yeah, sort of. You kind of did a little bit, but I didn't even notice it, honestly.
Yeah.
But, okay, so my gripe is, so as I said in the beginning of the podcast, I really love podcasts. It's my favorite type of media to consume. Very, like, auditory learner and stuff like that. So, and I've been listening to this podcast for years and years and years and heard them all, like, the different types. And because of that, I have heard some hosts are like infamous in my mind for speaking over their guests, and it drives me crazy because like they have these people on, and these people are probably getting paid. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they're just advertising their book or whatever. Like, but they have them on and they're like, ask them a question. It's a really good question because these hosts are like good hosts in that sense. And the person starts to answer, and you can hear in their voice, just in their cadence, that they're like maybe 25% to 30% of the way through their answer.
Yeah.
And the host hears them say like something that they're interested in, and then they'll just jump right on top of them and tell me about that, like tell me about that. Oh, and you're like, oh, you kind of forgive him for that one thing. It was like, okay, yeah, I kind of want to know about that too. And maybe if you got it to 100%, he wouldn't have remembered to touch on that. Okay. And so he starts to tell about that thing. And then the host is like, yeah, and that makes me think about, like, oh, dude, just let him talk. Like, let him tell you what the thing you're telling. I really wanted to hear that. Oh, my gosh. So, I spent a lot of time thinking about that when listening to podcasts, just like, what would those people have said? Because you can take conversations so many ways.
Yeah.
But podcasts are they're amazing in so many ways, but they're so final.
Yeah.
Like, once the podcast is done, it's done. Like, you can never go back and change it. Like, you can never go back and, like, change what you said, which is kind of, like, cool to think about, like, what we're doing today. But, it was just final. So I hated, like...
Somebody's like,
That's my gripe.
I can never go back and say what I can't fix that.
Yeah, it is crazy that, like, podcasts like books. Once you put it out in the world, it's out in the world.
Yeah.
But that is my gripe, is hosts who ask really good questions, but then don't let the guest answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much for being on. One thing I'm going to ask is, would either of you like to pray for people who may be thinking about having a family?
Me? Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Dear Lord, we come into your presence right now and just thank you so much for the gift of family, that even around this table, the four of us are family, that we're going to do life together forever, for as long as you give us breath on this earth. And I'm thinking about other families now too, Lord, that you would, there are people who are listening who want kids, but are having trouble having them, or want kids and are expecting them, and wanting to grow that family that they have. And Lord, I pray that you would send your Holy Spirit into every situation. I know that there's literally endless situations that people experience with children. But I pray that you would send your Holy Spirit to give peace and to give wisdom, to give joy in the situations that people are waiting for and looking forward to and expecting. Thank you, Lord, for the gift of children. I know it's sometimes strange to think about how we are all children, we all grow up to be adults, but every time a child is born, it is a gift and a blessing, and we thank you for the gifts that children are and the ways that they help us to see the world differently. And we remember that you ask us to all be like little children in our faith with you. So, Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to talk about what it's like to be as new parents and what it's like to have gotten here, and pray that you would bless everyone who's listening and bless us. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.